We've got a lot of good people working very hard for us in the legislature. We've got people like Matt Shea. We've got people like David Taylor. The list goes on and on and on. But you know what I'm going to ask you to do? After we leave here today, politely go up and thank them people and don't waste a lot of time with them. Because they're already our friends. They're on our side. What we need to do is go to the people that have sponsored anti-gun legislation against us, and we need to ask those folks why they think that they can violate the oath that they took due to the Constitution of the United States, and even more emphatic, the Constitution of the state of Washington. Well, I'm going to leave you with this. If people were to ask me if I'm scared of bad people having guns, my answer would be not nearly as scared as I am of my government trying to take mine. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob. All right, Representative Jim Walsh, is he out here? Okay, Melody Stombaugh hasn't shown up yet either? Okay. All right, so the next speaker that I'm going to have up here is another one of our founding members that was on that original phone call when we started up the Gun Rights Coalition. She works with Act for America. She's a Navy veteran. Carrie French.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. It's not as cold as it's been in the past, but we are so glad you're here. And I've got a few notes so that I don't ramble, but I just wanted to start with something that you probably recognize. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You all know that is the Second Amendment of the Federal Constitution. But what you may not have heard is much. The right of the individual citizen to bear arms in defense of himself or the state shall not be impaired. But nothing in this section shall be construed as authorizing individuals or corporations to organize and maintain or employ an armed body of men. That is our state constitution, Article 1, Section 24. That is our constitutional right. Infringe, impair. Those words are defined as to limit or undermine, encroach or weaken, damage, restrict, limit, curb, or check. Do you think some of our legislators need a vocabulary lesson? Yes. I do too. I'm Carrie French. I'm a veteran, a patriot, a Washington state citizen, and obviously a woman. I cherish our constitutional rights and our natural rights because I understand biology. Unlike some people in this state, I know that I am not stronger than a man, and I believe in equality. The only way that I can be equal in a situation that could be dangerous to my safety is by having the choice to protect myself with a firearm. It is the great equalizer. Some of the people here in Olympia, and especially in Seattle, are hell-bent on making sure that I and other women like me cannot protect ourselves. They want to limit, undermine, encroach on, weaken, damage, restrict, curb, and check my rights and other women's rights with a whole slew of hideous, oath-breaking bills. Oh, it's no problem for the Seattle elite who can afford armed personal bodyguards. They have their families protected by men with guns, but somehow they don't think that we should be allowed the same rights. Now, I know many of you care, or you wouldn't be here, but how many of you plan on going inside those buildings and talking to these legislators about these bills? I hope to see every hand. Because if you think coming to a rally, listening to a few speakers, and shaking your fist at the sky and being mad is going to change anything, think again. These people aim to disarm us. What are you going to do to stop them?
Fight back. Whatever it takes.
Well, don't get involved in politics. Yeah, well, you know what? I have a lot of things I'd rather be doing too. But that's irrelevant. You may not be interested in politics, but politics will be interested in you. If you do not get involved, we will see our rights taken from us. I'm not just talking about voting. I'm talking about a targeted, focused effort to get freedom-loving people elected and get rid of these elitist politicians who think the Second Amendment is old-fashioned and needs to go. How many of you have ever worked on a campaign? Good. I need to see more hands next time. How many of you ever have given money to a candidate? Put your money where your mouth is. How many of you have knocked on doors, made phone calls, held signs, put up signs for candidates who value our Second Amendment? How many of you have gone into the Second Amendment hating legislators' district to work for their opponent? This is where our power lies. We are a republic, and that means we have the power to elect people who come here to Olympia. You may not like party politics, but whatever party you choose, get involved. The only way we're going to protect our rights is to get involved. So who are these gun haters? All you have to do is go to ledge.wa.gov, that's leg.wa.gov, and look up the gun bills and see the names in the sponsor line. You can also go to washingtonvotes.org and check whatever issues are important to you. And every time a bill is introduced, you will get an email that tells you this bill has been introduced. Make sure that your representatives know who you are. Introduce yourself. You can track the progress of these bills at ledge.wa.gov. All bills get a number, and then they are assigned to a committee. The committee chair is the person who makes sure they get a hearing or kills the bill in committee. Once the bill gets a hearing, then the members will vote to pass it out or let it die. Then it goes to a couple other committees like Rules or Appropriations. And if it passes all those committees, then it goes to the floor. Once it goes to the floor, the legislators will vote yay or nay on it. Last year, our Senate was able to kill a lot of bad bills in committee. This year, we're not so lucky. It's going to be a big fight to keep those bills from going to the floors of the House and Senate. We have very few allies in the majority party. However, Representative Brian Blake is one, and we thank him for his courage to stand with us. This is why elections are so important. We can never rest because the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. This is why we must turn out the vote. So get involved. Now, the NRA put out an alert on Monday, January 15th, this next Monday, at 10 a.m., the Senate Law and Justice Committee is scheduled to hear multiple anti-gun bills in the Cherberg Building, Room 4. So that's on the other side where the senators are. Come early and sign in whether you want to testify or not. Register your opposition to these anti-American bills. Now, sometimes they play games, as Bob was just talking about. Sometimes they'll put the sign-in sheets outside, and sometimes they put them inside the room. But make sure that you sign one of the sign-in sheets. Even if you don't want to talk, just register that you are opposed to these bills. After the hearing, stop by your senator's office and let the legislative assistant know that you're here and you're concerned about these. Go by the committee chair's office too. Let them know that these bills must die. If you don't know who your reps and senators are, stop by that legislative tent over there and they'll help you figure out who they are. Make sure that you're nice and polite, because some people like to portray us as being crazy and gun-toting, brandishing, wanting to kill everybody. We don't. We want our rights. So here is a list of these shameful anti-American bills. Senate Bill 5444, sponsored by Senator David Frock, Democrat of the 46th District. This would impose a registration licensing system on commonly owned semi-automatic firearms and standard capacity ammunition magazines that bill proponents label as assault weapons and large capacity magazines. Every person who possesses, transports, manufactures, purchases, thank you, Wind, or sells so-called assault weapons or the large capacity magazines must have an annual, did you hear that? Annual, every year, state-issued license with an updated license required every time there's a change in possession of the gun or even a magazine. What is wrong with these people? People would be prohibited from selling or transferring any gun or magazine designated by this bill to anyone other than a licensed dealer, a gunsmith, or a law enforcement officer for permanent relinquishment. This also mandates that any firearm relinquished must be destroyed. That hurts my heart. Shame on Senator Frock. Shame on him. Shame. Senate Bill 5463, sponsored by Senator Guy Palumbo, Democrat of the 1st District. This vaguely written bill would require individuals to lock up firearms or potentially face a Class C felony. A felony. This intrusive government legislation invades people's homes and forces them to render their firearms useless in a self-defense situation by locking them up. So they're willing to violate not only our Second Amendment rights, but our Fourth Amendment rights. What gives them the right to come into our houses to make sure our guns are locked up? I sleep with my loaded gun by my bed. So make sure you call before you come in the middle of the night. If you don't have a warrant, you're not coming in my house unless you're invited. And then, of course, if you're a felon, if you become a felon, if this bill passes and you become a felon, then you can't have a gun at all. Shame on Senator Palumbo. Shame on him. He has no problem violating our constitutional rights. Talk about fascist. Senate Bill 5992, sponsored by Senator Kevin Van de Wage, Democrat, 24, Legislative District 24. It mirrors federal legislation by proposed anti-gun California U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein. Whoa. This would make it a crime to knowingly possess a firearm accessory or any other device, part, or combination of parts that is designed or functioned to accelerate the rate of fire in a semi-automatic firearm. Now, when I read this, I said, well, what do you need that for, right? Well, this would criminalize firearm modifications such as competition triggers, muzzle brakes, and other ergonomic changes that are commonly done by law-abiding gun owners to make their firearms more suitable for self-defense, competition, hunting, or even overcoming a disability. So Senator Van de Wage has no problem making the vulnerable even more vulnerable. Shame on him, too. Yes. Senate Bill 6049, again sponsored by Senator Frock, is another bill that's targeting the large capacity magazines. It would prohibit the possession of ammunition magazines holding 10 or more rounds, with limited exceptions. Those allowed to possess these large capacity magazines would be required to lock up their ammunition magazine or face criminal charges. So I ask you, what is the point of having a gun if you have to lock it up? Keep your ammunition separate and locked up as well. In a self-defense situation, you're not going to have time to go unlock those things, load, and defend yourself. But remember, it's always for the children. But the most dangerous bill, Senate Bill 6146, sponsored by Senator Rebecca Saldana, Democrat, Legislative District 37, would abolish Washington's firearm preemptive statute. Now, what is that? That is a statute that was passed in 1983 that gives sole authority of the state's firearm laws to the legislature, where it belongs. And it allows different localities to make their own gun rules. So that means if this bill is passed, if you drive into Seattle, you might be a felon now, just because you're carrying your legal weapon. So this bill cannot pass. Furthermore, the Second Amendment rights are guaranteed to all citizens regardless of where they live, and protects against the infringement of rights of citizens who live in places controlled by anti-gun elected officials like Seattle. Shame, shame, shame on Senator Saldana. Shame on her. So remember, what day are the hearings? Monday. This coming Monday, 10 a.m. Now, make sure you keep track, because on ledge.wa.gov, sometimes they'll change the day or the time of the hearing. So make sure you keep track of that. These tyrants cannot succeed. Stand up, show up in their districts to campaign against them. Get organized with other constitutional patriots. If you need help learning how to do that, you can talk with any of the speakers here. You can talk with Rick, you can talk with Peggy Hutt over there. But we have to show up. Because gun control is anti-constitutional, anti-American, and it's plain old racist and sexist. Founding Father George Mason said to disarm the people was the most effectual way to enslave them. One of my favorites, Samuel Adams, said the Constitution shall never be construed to prevent the people of the United States, who are peaceable citizens, from keeping their own arms. Thomas Jefferson wrote in the draft of the Virginia Constitution of 1776, "No free man shall ever be debarred of the use of arms." At the first annual address in 1790, George Washington said, "A free people ought not only to be armed, but disciplined." And my favorite founding father, Patrick Henry, said at the Constitution Ratification Convention of 1788, "To guard with jealous attention the public liberty, suspect everyone who approaches that jewel. Unfortunately, nothing will preserve it but downright force. Whenever you give up that force, you are ruined. The great objective is that every man be armed. Everyone who is able might have a gun." That was Patrick Henry. Yes. Well, Senators Frock, Van de Wage, and Saldana, you are hereby on notice. We are suspicious of you for approaching our liberties, and we will not go down without a fight. Yes. You want to test our resolve? Do so at your own political peril. Remember, go inside today, show up on Monday, testify, talk to our legislators, thank the ones that support our Second Amendment rights, try to persuade the ones who don't, because we can never, ever, ever give up. Thanks for listening.
Great job, Carrie. She outlined the things that we need to be talking about with them today. Now, I want to make a note about that preemption one. That preemption one, that's a pretty big deal. And they really want to get that done, because once they are able to do that, then they can slowly whittle away at our rights, one city at a time. Furthermore, once they've got one or two cities, then they cause us to be leery about carrying in the first place, because we're afraid we might be, crossing some imaginary border, and all of a sudden our rights don't apply anymore. Well, we can't have that. Can't have that. Carrie also mentioned getting involved. Okay, the first thing is we got to vote. Now, who's to blame for where we're at right here, right now? We are. We didn't get enough people to vote to make sure that this didn't happen. We have the people. There's no reason that there's no excuse for it. We need to get it done. What's one other way that we can get involved? Right in our local area, right close to where we live. How many PCOs we got out here in the audience? 1, 2, 3. There's got to be more. I know Peggy's out here. I'm sure there's got to be more out here. If they're not, there's really kind of not an excuse for it. Check with your county chair and see if you've got a PCO in your area. If you don't, talk to them about being volunteer to be appointed. If that's a problem, which I'm kind of fighting with my county chair right now, because I'm in an area that has no PCO, and he doesn't want to appoint me. I guess I'm too constitutional for him. If that happens, they get on the ballot. It doesn't cost anything to file for PCO. You just go in and file. And if no one else files, you end up being a PCO by default, which is what's probably going to end up happening with me, because there's no one out there, and I'm in this far-reaching district where closest house is half a mile away, and the next one's probably 2 miles. So when it comes around filing time, I'm going to file for election as a PCO. But a lot of you don't even have to do that. All you need to do is get a hold of your county chair and see if you have a PCO in your district. And I'll bet a lot of you could be appointed just simply because there is no one. All right, so the next speaker that I'm going to have up here is the State Pink Pistol Chair, Sharon Hincliffe. Sharon Hincliffe? Thought I saw you here somewhere. Sharon? Sharon Hincliffe? Give her a big hand.
Hello everybody, my name is Sharon Hinchcliffe. I am a member and one of the admins for Seattle-Tacoma Pink Pistols. I am also a member of the National African American Gun Association. I am also a member of Blue Line family over 100 years. My family has stood to protect the citizens of the country. I know that the only way to protect yourself is to carry. Governor Inslee, you are appalling on your saying that it is safety that you vote for these, when the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled repeatedly that no individual citizen has the right to expect the police to respond when they call 911. The Seventh Court of Appeals has also stated that the citizens do not expect to have any expectation of protection from the government, whether it is a madman or a criminal who wishes to attack them. Your stance on civil rights is appalling, and any infringement on the Second Amendment shows that you are a racist, sexist bigot. So stop this with the infringement on the Second Amendment. You state that you want licensing, you want registration. The court has already ruled that that is infringement, for you are doing the same that the Southern blacks did during the 1960s and before then, to prevent African Americans who were newly freed as slaves from voting. You are doing the equivalency of literacy tests and poll taxation. Stop infringing the Second Amendment. Thank you.
All right, another big hand for Sharon Hinchcliffe. Do we have Isa Klein out here? Kevin, Isa Klein? Melanie Stombaugh out here yet? Jim Walsh? Okay. All right, the next person that I'm going to have out here is kind of, this is kind of something near and dear to me. How many of you out here carry a firearm every day? Okay, I expected that. How many of you out here carry a firearm every day openly where everyone can see you? Okay, not as many there. I know that there's a tactical advantage to concealing your firearm. That way you've got a tactical, well, when you respond, no one's gonna know about it. Well, I prefer to open carry. The reason I prefer to open carry is I don't ever want to have to be in that situation. I don't want to ever have to tactically use my firearm. Deterrent value. Deterrent value, yes. That's exactly why I do not want to hide my firearm. I want someone to know if they see me that I'm prepared to defend myself. I'm gonna let Rob Stratton come up, and I'm gonna let him talk more about that. Sure, if I can. Here we are again. Why? Because there is constant threats and attacks upon our liberties, especially the right to bear arms. President Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, also stated that there's a natural tendency for government to grow to tyranny. But he also gave us a solution to that, stated earlier by a representative. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. My years spent as a political advocate, though, I've noticed that some of our own worst enemies are those claiming to be on our side. Many believe in compromising toward liberty. So-called gun right activists tried to get us open carriers not to do it. Many also advocate for permission slips, licensing schemes, background checks, and so forth.